Morning, everybody. I'm talking to you from a long ways away. Oh, wait a minute. That's not quite accurate. Well, it could be in some instances, but I am a long ways away from where you are today. Today, March 30th, Aromatic Lily. This is the third in a series of red teas. But where am I today? I am on an airplane speeding to Korea with final destination China. Tea Master and I are doing our spring trip both in China and Japan. So the next 6 sessions will A, be shorter, B, will only show and demonstrate how to do the tea once, and you won't have a chance to ask us questions. However, that doesn't mean that if you have questions, you can't write them down and ask us later. It is not going to work to email questions to us right away because we're in China, and China has a so-called email wall, not an email wall, that's ridiculous, an internet wall. And so I'm not sure whether we'll be able to receive emails in a systematic way. However, by late April, we will start to be able to pick those up and we'll answer the questions one by one. Lastly, starting March 29th, our website will not, you'll be able to order, but you won't be able to receive tea until mid-May. So just be aware of that. The website will tell you what the deal is because we will not fulfill any of the orders until we come back in mid-May. So I think that's the administrative stuff that you need to know. Aromatic Lily. Now let's see. We've taken a journey. During this set of 3, we've been to Yunnan once. Where did we go in Yunnan? We went to the Ilau Mountains and we tasted efflorescence. And we got a sense of why indigenous people creating tea on site creates a different flavor profile. And it's interesting. All of you commented it varied during the course of the cup. Really gave you a different sense, say, compared to an Anhui or Fujian or today's tea from Yunnan, a different place in Yunnan. The first week, by the way, we had chiffon, and chiffon gave you a real traditional sense of Anhui red teas. Anhui as they started being produced in the 1870s. So you've had those 2 models. This is Yunnan as it was produced starting really in about 1939. Now that doesn't sound like a very long time ago, and it's not, because that was when tea leaders from Anhui looked for a place that was as far away from Japanese invasion as possible and set up in Yunnan. And they chose Fengqing. Fengqing was chosen because there were already ancient tea trees there. There were already growing tea, plantation tea there. So it's a rich environment. And it was far away. And remote and hard as heck to get to. By the way, it's still fairly long to get to. So what does this place look like? What's the terroir of this place as compared to, say, the Ilau Mountains? Because remember, Ilau Mountains were a little bit central, just off the center. They were really a little south of center and then really a little west of center. But the Ilau Mountains really run north to south. And so there we saw soil that was brownish, pH roughly between 4 and 5. We saw different environments. Deep in the World Heritage Site, we saw a very abundant rainforest, but it was more of a temperate rainforest, not the same as Fengqing. Big difference right away. You notice it as you roll in. Red soil. Ooh, that's got other elements in it. It's the first thing. Second thing is when you start doing testing, you would find that its soil is anywhere from 4.8 to 5.6 in alkalinity. Acidity, I'm sorry. And so that's higher, or it's actually, when we say higher here, what we mean is closer to a base than Isla. What about the pre-existing tea trees and the pre-existing farmers growing tea? What were they like? What are they like? You have some farmers who are Han farmers who moved into the area. And they've been there for a fairly long time. And you also have indigenous farmers. You have ancient trees there. In the Fengqing area, there are about 3,000 acres of ancient farms. Now, we're going to go back and address what that really means in a minute, because I'm going to augment what I just told you. So 3,000 acres of ancient farms and about 3,500 acres of ancient trees. And just like in Ilau, what are these trees and farms, what are they doing with the tea leaves? They're either doing raw black, fully fermented, or reds. That's what they're doing, by and large, with the tea leaves in this area as well. Fengqing, by the way, for those of you who got the map last week, it's a county that belongs to the administrative area of Lincang, Lincang. And you'll see that on your map because we pointed it out last week. The other aspect is, what's the weather like up there? Well, average is about 62 degrees throughout the year. Its seasons aren't sharply demarcated. In other words, the way they call it out in that particular county is, oh, all 4 seasons are spring. So the rainy season isn't flooded. The dry season isn't bone dry. The hot season is not scorching. And the cold season is not freezing. All 4 seasons very close together. Rainfall, what's that like? That's about 50 inches a year, between 50 and 55 inches a year. So there's plenty of water. The watershed is well retained within the soil. So it's really an ideal place to be growing tea. Now, the Chinese, when they entertain guests, always put their best foot forward. So when Queen Elizabeth in 1986 visited, she went to Fengqing as one of the places she visited. And the provincial governor gave her tea from Fengqing, which she loved. And subsequently continued ordering from Fengqing. So what's the other name for tea from Fengqing? It's called Dianhong. Dianhong, and that's, you see it in stores as Dian red, Dian black, Dian is the Dian I'm talking about. And Dian is an Aboriginal word which really means Yunnan. That's it. But this really, in the very beginning, referred to Fengqing, that area. Over time, it meant all reds. from Yunnan Province. But this is the home. This is where it really started out. Dinhong. Characteristic of Dinhong. Number one, almost always has some sweetness to it. Number two, usually the leaves are quite large because, and let's back up a minute, because I said something that's not quite true. If it's leaves of old or ancient, they are large. If it's leaves of bushes that are grown in monoclonally, then size can vary. But among the old and the ancient, it's large. And in fact, when you go and look at wild growing bushes in the area, the very first time I went to Fengqing, I saw buds that were this long and they were hugely thick. And I thought, I cannot be looking at a tea plant, even though the rest of the plant looked, fairly normal. The buds were enormous. The leaves themselves, quite enormous. Ironically, the very oldest tree in Fengqing, around 3,500 years old, the very oldest tree, we visited before. And when we went there, we were shocked because one very big item stood out, and that was the fact that the leaves were smallish. And then these wild growing bushes around, they had these gigantic buds and gigantic leaves. So it turns out as the tree goes into aging that the leaves become smaller. Still have good flavor. And by the way, a pound of those leaves. Now let's back up and check what I mean. A pound of the fresh leaves, $100,000 from this one tree. So is this the field that you and I, the 99%ers play in? Well, we imagine playing in this field, and we enviously look at this field, but no, we don't purchase that stuff. And that's really for people who are billionaires, the people who have amassed great amounts of money and are looking to enjoy something that's a one-off. But this gives you some sense of this area. So let's talk about the wild tea gardens as well, because these were wild insofar as they arose and grew up, but they were cultivated over the years as people found them together. So we've been to wild gardens. You walk through, you got our plants growing there, but it's mostly tea trees, and it's fenced off, and it's usually in smaller plots. So it was cultivated during some point in history. It started being cultivated. Some of the trees probably predate the cultivation. Most of the old trees were probably purposefully thinned out and cultivated in these areas. And so they have these in Fengqing. And I think that this is part of what fascinated the tea literati, who are the tea experts who came from Anhui and stumbled upon this particular area. This area, this county, didn't all of a sudden become famous in 1939. Actually, the literature during the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to about 1635 or so, literature during the Ming Dynasty talked about travelers who went to this area and the large size of the leaves and the deliciousness of the output. So remembering that the output at that time was not red tea, as we're going to have today, and it certainly wasn't fermented tea. It was green tea. So they were about to go into the making of other styles of tea, but they hadn't quite reached it yet. All right, so that gives you background, tells you it's a beautiful place, tells you that the terroir is ideal for tea growing. The only thing it doesn't tell you is what the end result is. And so, again, today is a little different because this is pre-recorded. I'm going to ask the tea master in just 30 seconds to come forward. And so you will watch her and you can actually brew along with her all in this first round. We're not going to first demonstrate and then brew again because we're not live. And so we don't have a chance to have interactions and talk about what's happening on the spot. But she will demonstrate it and you will brew along with that. And as I said, if you have questions or observations, we'll talk about those later. So it is my very great pleasure to call the tea master out of the airplane. Oh, wait a minute. That's not quite right. Well, to bring the tea master in right now and brew Aromatic Lily. What's that need?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Yeah. Okay, we do 红茶滇红哈. It's tea from Yunnan, so Fengqing. So okay. Oh, today is fancy. I prefer so many teas. This is from the the Fengqing. This is from Israel tea. How we do first. It's red. Okay. So how can we add?
Okay.
Water. Yeah. 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So our usual routine, you guys are all used to this. Heating the cups anywhere from 175 to 200. The eventual water temperature that we're going to use is 175. In your packets, the tea is already pre-measured out, and the steeping time for this is going to be 3 minutes. Heats the cups, make sure that they're completely clean and rinsed. Drawing 175-degree water, which she's going to aerate, dissipate the steam, and get the water ready to do this interesting tea.
Mm-hmm. 175. So I use it right now. Yeah. And then dissipate steam. So for me, yeah.
He adds the tea leaves to the heated cup. She's going to hold it horizontally. Look at how she holds it. Shake the leaves to try and distribute the heat among the leaves as best as possible. Smells it to make sure it's what she really thinks it is. Puts the water back in the kettle so that she can control the pour on the side of the cup. And then she uses Tea Master artistry. Lift the cup like a rocket into space and let that water pour down without losing even a drop. Timer is set for 3 minutes. Puts water in the recipient cup. All right, so this is what it looks like. So there's some things that right away are noticeable about most Fengqing teas. First off, if it's going to be sweet, it's not just a little sweet. If it's going to be floral, it's not just a little floral. Has this ever been infused with flowers? No. Has it been altered in any way aside from the process of doing red tea? No. So again, the process of doing red tea is you pick, and in this case, it's a bud and a leaf. So this is what they would call special grade. And you go ahead and bring it in to the production area, whether it's the farm itself or a true production area. And by the way, as I'm saying this, I realize there's one other thing I haven't told you. When you go through Fengqing, you're unaware of pollution. And the reason you're unaware of pollution is they haven't really allowed any sorts of big factories in there except for tea producing facilities. So it's one of these ideal places where the air smells really good. And when they're producing tea and you get close to the facility, you smell that thing from afar, from very far away. So after they bring it in, they wither. And again, every farmer is a little different. Every production facility is a little different. They make their judgments. This is usually anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. After withering, they then actually roll the tea. What they're trying to do is break down the tea leaves so that the cells all become broken and they're exposed to oxygen and undergo the various changes that they undergo in terms of flavor and aroma, in terms of the polyphenol composition. You know, catechins become theaflavins, which become theorubicins, and all of these have their various interactions with the human body, all positive. And mostly red tea is really, really good for warming you up and for digestive purposes. After the rolling, they pile it, usually pile it anywhere from 6 to 8 inches high. And it's during this period that oxidation occurs. They control temperature, they control humidity, remembering that oxidation occurs in a bell curve. At 32 degrees, it's zero, essentially zero oxidation. At 88, it's very heavy oxidation. And then at 150 and above, there's no oxidation, it stops oxidation. At the conclusion of the oxidation, by the way, the timer went off, so we're going to separate the tea leaves from the tea liquid. At the conclusion of oxidation, then essentially you bake the tea in order that it doesn't mold. So you get the water content down to 4 to 5% or less. So those are the steps. Can you make mistakes in those steps? Just like any tea, you can make plenty of mistakes in the steps. You can over-oxidize. Over-oxidizing will cause the tea to have a 4-letter word, a very bad 4-letter word. Sour. All right, the color of your tea should look like this. And you go through the normal quantitative and qualitative judgments about the tea. And we enter the quality arena. The quality arena is going to look at astringency, and it's going to look at aftertaste and then energetics. And then the second time around, it's going to be about, hey, what's this flavor like? What's the mouth feel like? What's the aroma like? Is there a change? Is there consistency? All the things that we look for. And you're going to go through this process with this tea. And again, you should look this deep color. Smell is wonderful. Yep, there's that astringency on the tongue for me. Aftertaste, I'm thinking about. It's going to take me another sip to nail that down. And in energetics, I'm already feeling a warmth. Yeah, for me, the astringency is front to mid tongue. I get a little bit of coolness in the aftertaste, and energetics wise, I feel warmth. So the real takeaways from this tea compared to the other two. This is a Yunnan tea. This is from a different terroir, and the production is very straightforward. There isn't a lot of refined production with this. And the flavor is just so good. You don't need much refined production, but you don't hit. So with the refined production, everything looks uniform. You get kind of some extremes, good extremes in the flavors. This is just about deep, heavy, full, really, really delicious tea. So your instructions are as follows. You've made the tea already. Go through the quality arena as you normally would. Take your time with this. And then if, again, you'll make notes later on, we can review those notes and talk about the characteristics that you come up with. All right, so today's session will end here. And in preparation for the next session, let me remind you, come with your green tea notes, because we're about to start a wonderful green tea adventure. It will dazzle you. Oh, wait a minute. It will dazzle you. Oh, I guess the first tea is dazzling. Yes. It will make you feel as if you are just young and you're full of energy. You'll feel a little swanky. Oh, the second one is swanky. Yes. You will be the embodiment. And that's the third one. So these are the 3 teas that we'll talk about in the next 3 weeks. Your assignment, even though I'm not there to oversee you right now, is to still stay healthy. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.